In this video, we're going to be going over the modeling and the unwrapping of the first of our fantasy props, and we're actually going to start with this potion bottle. So what I'm going to do is actually just drag this image right in my background, make a backdrop item. Again, let's throw in a 1 by 1 meter cube. Realistically, that's kind of big for a bottle. So we'll shrink it down to about right there. Call that good. So again, I can just delete this box. I was just using it for size. And the other thing I'll do, just for best practices, normally whenever you're creating an asset, you want it to set on the ground. This would be kind of the ground plane right here. So we'll just have him sitting right on the ground. And again, we can ignore these two shapes for now. Worry about those later. So with this, we're going to keep this model really simple. This whole collection of assets we're going to keep pretty simple. And again, we're starting with this guy because it's the easiest of the three. Then we're going to do the sword. Then we're going to do the shield. And in these videos, we're going to go through the modeling process and the unwrapping process. And then we don't want to texture them individually because we want all the textures to be on one image. So the last thing would be, there's technically your fourth item that would be down here. But that's going to be one that you create. I don't have control over that. So that's going to be the one that you're going to be modeling last, unwrapping last, and then you'll be texturing them all together. So just some kind of ideas for that. People in the past have done like a bow and arrow. They've done like a spell book. There's just a bunch of things in the fantasy universe that you could do, like a helmet maybe, whole bunch of stuff. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to probably make the cork a separate piece than the rest of the glass. And we're actually going to start with a cylinder, 16 sides. That would probably be fine. Yeah, let's do a 16-sided. And again, usually it's good to have an even number of polygons because again, at any time I could really easily select every other polygon, remove those, and now I have a quote-unquote low poly version of that bottle. Actually, so it looks like I accidentally dropped in 15 polygons, so it's usually good to check. So the other thing that I can sometimes do when I use a tablet, let's go ahead and reset this, is when I drop this shape, wow, our widget's huge. Regardless, when I drop this shape, if I accidentally move my mouse up or down, you can see there's a bunch of edges getting added and subtracted from this. I just want to be careful that I don't accidentally move my mouse or my pen when I don't intend to. There we go. So again, the widget was really big. We just hold shift and hit A, or just hit A, and that will recenter that. Other thing I actually just did is if you have the move tool active and you accidentally click and drag, it's going to move your mesh a little bit. So if you just do it a tiny bit, you might not notice. So just be really careful with that. So let's scale this in. And again, with any of these, you can feel free to use the symmetry tools that we've went over. This bottle, I'm probably not going to. I'm probably just going to do this just like we did the chess pieces. So let's scale this up. Let's just do kind of a really simple, simple version of it at first, and then we can make it more complicated later. Go in and kind of smooth things out and whatnot. And the other thing is I don't want to bring this bottle just straight up and call that good. If we look at this, it kind of flares out and it just has that cartoony feel to it. It's those really little things, just moving that up just a tiny bit, that's going to give this that kind of extra flavor and make it feel a little bit more fun. And the other thing I want to do, when I add an edge, I want to make sure that it's actually affecting the shape. Because technically I could go in and add another edge right here. But if it's not doing anything, if I double click this edge and remove it and the shape doesn't change, that edge really doesn't need to be there. Like this edge, remove it and it expands a little bit. So it's affecting the silhouette. So again, we kind of want to be mindful when we're doing stuff like this. So from here, probably call that good. Now we'll go ahead and do a little tiny bevel on these edges. Actually, we'll probably just do a bevel with a roundness level of 0. Again, we want to keep this fairly simple because, again, the simpler your model is, the easier it is to unwrap. And from here, we'll actually bevel this one as well. Actually, give this... Actually, no, let's just leave it at 0. But this one, we're going to give this one a roundness level. Its roundness level is currently at 0. We'll just pop that up to 1. Same thing here, bevel, really tiny bevel, and roundness level of 0. So again, let's go ahead and turn that wireframe off, turn our backdrop item off. This and this are now n-gons. So geometry, polygon, quadruple. That's going to go ahead and cut those up. The other thing that you could do, if you'd prefer, let's just isolate just this top polygon. Some people like to manually do this at first, just like that, and then they can kind of fill in the rest themselves, because again, it just kind of picks whatever angle it sees fit, and sometimes you kind of want your straight lines to be going front to back, left to right. It just makes it look a little bit more organized, and sometimes it actually makes it easier to model certain things. So the bottom, we'll do that same thing. Oops, I want to make sure that says 0 or 100. We're just using the edge slice tool. Again, whenever I use a tool, if I don't call out what it is, it'll pop up over here and say what tool is getting used. So again, I can click 2, hold shift, start over again, click, click, hold shift, left click, hold shift. And again, kind of a tedious process, but it's just one of those best practices things that's usually worth the time it takes to do it. So the other thing, if I look at this, we're getting some weird smoothing here. So I'm just going to add another edge. And let's actually just really delicately scale that in. So now there's just a little bit of a taper there. Do the same thing to the bottom. Scale this one out. So again, this part bubbles out a little bit. This part bubbles in a little bit. Just adds a little bit of character to our bottle. So now all we need is the cork. So instead of dropping down a new cylinder, I'm just going to grab the top of this one, copy, paste, W to move that guy up, shrink him down. What I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to flip him around upside down. So this would be the bottom of the cork. Double click, Z for edge extend, pull that up. Again, all these modeling tools that I'm using are all ones that we've used multiple times before. Now I just want to get this angle right. Somewhere in about here. Let's actually scale this up on all axes. We'll grab the cyan bubble in the middle. Something like that. Let's grab this, pull it down, and just stick it right through. Again, it's probably actually going to be sticking in a little bit, so we'll put it all the way down to right there. Now we need a top to this. I could use the bridge tool, but I'll show you just a new hotkey. P for polygon is going to create a polygon. So again, I had this entire outside edge, double click, grabbed all those polygons. P for polygon, it just fills it right in. Let's go through, and we'll just fill this top one in as well. Again, being really careful, I'm doing this kind of fast, but I make sure that it says 100% or 0% every time that I click, and I'll alternate back and forth between 100 and 0%. That just lets me know that I'm clicking right on that polygon. So this, I can give this a little bit of a bevel if I want. I just have to be really careful that I don't, if I pull it too far, it's going to start looking a little goofy right here. So something like that. So now we have our bottle. If I turn the wireframe off, you can see there's just the little faceting and whatnot. So we're actually going to give this a material. We'll just leave it as default. All the other assets we make, we'll just leave those to default as well, probably. Oops. So, material reference, smoothing angle is 40. Let's pop that up to 80, hit enter, and that makes the top of that look just all the smoother. So let's turn our backdrop item on one more time. Make our cork a little bit smaller. That should be fine. Yeah, let's make it just a little bit thicker. Something like that. And I'm not going to worry about modeling the inside of this bottle out. Something like this is just fine for this. Let's turn off our backdrop item. So let's go ahead and save this. Call it bottle. Just throw it on the desktop. Now I'm good to unwrap this. And again, realistically, move this over. I started with a cylinder, so you can kind of still see the remnants of that cylinder unwrap in there. Once you start cutting stuff up and modifying things, the unwrap kind of breaks. So just remember that. Make sure that you finish your model completely, and then you unwrap, and then you texture. So let's just do this little cork first. And this is pretty much a cylinder, so we're going to treat it like a cylinder. Double click here, and let's just grab this little edge right here. Unwrap, right click, we get this perfectly fine. If I threw a checker pattern on there, that'd look good. This is a really simple model, so I'm not going to really worry about that checker pattern right now. So now we kind of have this little portion of a cylinder, and then this. So I might do this in 3 different pieces, but normally a cylinder is going to be the top, the bottom, and then a line going up. This is kind of a fancy cylinder. So when I try to unwrap it, it gives me this scenario. So let's put on that checker pattern and see how it unwraps. So again, this side really small squares, really big squares here. Unwrap, right click. So we can try a few of these. This one right here is actually not that bad. The ones on the bottom are a little bit bigger than the ones on the top. So if we added a few cuts in here, it's going to make it a little bit more uniform like this. And you can see these shapes are a little bit more friendly. But again, we probably wouldn't need to cut it up this much. This is just something you can kind of experiment with. So again, we have this little top portion, just the neck. That really works like a cylinder really well. Just this portion. The other thing we could do is with this selected, if we unwrapped just this, it would give us kind of a circle of an unwrap. Same thing with the bottom, selecting just those polygons. Gives us a little bit of a circle. And again, the circle's not looking very clean. We can modify these, but I think we'll be fine with this. I'm not too worried about those seams. So at this point, just to make things clean, I'm just going to do a pack and not really worry about. I just want it to be in 1-to-1 space. When we get all of our assets done, we'll pack them all together in one texture, so they'll be kind of what we can think of it as. So there's going to be the bottle right here, the sword right here, the shield right here, and then your extra mystery asset, I guess you could say, would be in the extra corner right here. We're just going to divide these into fourths. So from here, we can save our 3D file, and we're good to go on this. It should be all set.